I call the Prime Minister to make a statement. Prime Minister Johnson.
Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I will make a statement on our continuing fight against coronavirus and how we intend to fulfil our simultaneous objectives, saving lives, protecting the NHS, while keeping our children in school and our economy running, protecting jobs and livelihoods. This morning, the Deputy Chief Medical Officer set out the stark reality of the second wave of this virus. The number of cases has quadrupled in the last 3 weeks. There are now more people in hospital with COVID than when we went into lockdown on March the 23rd, and deaths are already rising. And that, of course, there are those who say that on that logic we should go back into a full national lockdown of indefinite duration, closing schools and businesses, telling people again to stay at home, as we did in March, once again shattering our lives and our society. I do not believe that would be the right course. We would not only be depriving our children of their education, we would do such damage to our economy as to erode our long-term ability to fund the NHS and other crucial public services. And on the other side of the argument, there are those who think that the patience of the public is now exhausted, that we should abandon the fight against COVID, stand aside, let nature take her course, and call a halt to these repressions of liberty. And of course, I understand those emotions, I understand the frustration of those who've been chafing under the restrictions, the sacrifices they've made. But if we were to follow that course, Mr. Speaker, and let the virus rip, then the bleak mathematics dictate that we would suffer not only an intolerable death toll from COVID, we would put such a huge strain on our NHS with an uncontrolled second spike that our doctors and nurses would be simply unable to devote themselves to other treatments for cancer, heart disease, and hundreds more that have already been delayed and that would be delayed again with serious long-term damage to the health of the nation. And I'm afraid it is no answer to say that we could let the virus take hold among the young and fit while shielding the elderly and vulnerable, because the virus would then spread with such velocity in the general population that there would be no way of stopping it from spreading among the elderly. And even if the virus is less lethal for the under 60s, there will still be many younger people for whom, alas, it remains lethal. So, Mr. Speaker, we don't want to go back to another national lockdown. We can't let the virus rip, and so we've followed since June a balanced approach with the support of many members across the House to keep the R down while keeping schools and the economy going, and controlling the virus by changing our behaviour so as to restrict its spread. That's why we have the rule of 6, and we have restrictions such as a 10 p.m. closing time on our hospitality sector. Mr. Speaker, I take no pleasure whatsoever in imposing restrictions on these businesses, many of which have gone to great lengths to reopen as safely as possible. Nor do I want to stop people enjoying themselves. But we must act to save lives. And the evidence shows that in changing our behaviour, in restricting transmission between us, our actions are saving lives. Left unchecked, each person with the virus will infect an average of between 2.7 and 3 others. But SAGE assess that the current R nationally is between 1.2 and 1.5. So we're already suppressing that R to well below its natural level, which is why the virus is not spreading as quickly as it did in March. But we need to go further. In recent months, we have worked with local leaders to counter local spikes with targeted restrictions. But this local approach has inevitably produced different sets of rules in different parts of the country that are now complex to understand and to enforce. So, just as we simplified our national rules with the rule of six, we will now simplify and standardise our local rules by introducing a three-tiered system of local COVID alert levels in England, set at medium, high and very high. The medium alert level will cover most of the country, and will consist of the current national measures. This includes the rule of six and the closure of hospitality at 10 p.m. The high alert level reflects the interventions in many local areas at the moment. This primarily aims to reduce household-to-household transmission by preventing all mixing between different households or support bubbles indoors. In these areas, the rule of six will continue to apply outdoors, where it is harder for the virus to spread in public spaces as well as private gardens. Most areas which are already subject to local restrictions will automatically move into the high alert level. As a result of rising infection rates, Nottinghamshire, East and West Cheshire, and a small area of High Peak will also move into the high alert level. The very high alert level will apply where transmission rates are rising most rapidly and where the NHS could soon be under unbearable pressure without further restrictions. In these areas, the government will set a baseline of prohibiting social mixing indoors and in private gardens and, I'm sorry to say, closing pubs and bars. We want to create the maximum possible local consensus behind this more severe local action. So in each area, we will work with local government leaders on the additional measures which should be taken. This could lead to further restrictions on the hospitality, leisure, entertainment, or personal care sectors. But retail, schools, and universities will remain open. As my right honourable friend the Chancellor has set out, the government will expand its unprecedented economic support to assist those affected by these decisions, extending our job support scheme to cover 2/3 of the wages of those in any business that is required to close, and providing those businesses with a cash grant of up to £3,000 a month instead of £1,500 every 3 weeks. We will also provide local authorities across England with around £1 billion of new financial support on top of our £3.6 billion Towns Fund. And for very high areas, we will give further financial support for local test and trace and local enforcement, and assistance from the armed forces, not for enforcement, but rather to support local services, if desired, in the local area. Mr. Speaker, I can report that we've been able to reach agreement with leaders in Merseyside. Local authorities in the Liverpool City region will move into the very high alert level from Wednesday. In addition to the baseline I've outlined, this is as well as pubs and bars. In Merseyside, gyms and leisure centres, betting shops, adult gaming centres and casinos will also close. I'd like to put on record my thanks to Steve Rotherham and his colleagues for their cooperation in very difficult circumstances. Engagement with other leaders in the North West, the North East, and Yorkshire and Humber is continuing. I know how difficult this is. They, like us, like everyone in this House, are grappling with very real dilemmas. But we cannot let the NHS fall over when lives are at stake. So let me repeat the offer that we're making to those local authorities. Work with us on these difficult but necessary measures in the areas that are rated very high in return for more support for local test and trace, more funding for local enforcement, the offer of help from the armed services, and the job support scheme as announced by the Chancellor. I believe not to act would be unforgivable, so I hope that rapid progress can be made in the coming days. Regulations for all 3 COVID local alert levels are being laid today. They will be debated and voted on tomorrow before coming into force on Wednesday. We will also keep these measures under constant review, including a 4-week sunset clause for interventions in very high areas. A postcode search on gov.uk, as well as the NHS COVID-19 app, will show which local alert level applies in each area, and we're also publishing updated guidance to explain what the COVID alert levels mean for those who are clinically extremely vulnerable. And while these levels specifically apply to England, we continue to work closely with the devolved administrations to tackle this virus across the whole United Kingdom. Mr. Speaker, this is not how we want to live our lives, but this is the narrow path we have to tread between the social and economic trauma of a full lockdown and the massive human and indeed economic cost of an uncontained epidemic. With local and regional and national government coming together in a shared responsibility and a shared effort to deliver ever better testing and tracing, ever more efficient enforcement of the rules, and with ever improving therapies, with the mountains of PPE and the ventilators that we have stockpiled, with all the lessons we have learned in the last few months, we're becoming better and better at fighting this virus. And though I must warn the House again that the weeks and months ahead will continue to be difficult and will test the mettle of this country, I have no doubt at all that together we will succeed. And I commend this statement to the House.
Debate of the 2020 election. For the first time since October 2016, President Trump will share the stage with a political opponent, Democratic presidential nominee and former Vice President Joe Biden. There's a look at the stakes for tonight. About 3/4 of likely viewers, people who say they'll watch, are tuning in to see how their candidate does. Just 6% say they're watching because they're still deciding whom to vote for. 6% may not sound like a lot, but it can take less than that to flip a state. 13 states, plus Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, saw a margin smaller than 6% in the 2016 election. Together, they're worth 162 electoral votes, more than half the 270 needed to win the presidency. Caitlin Huey-Burns and Nicole Killian join me now. Caitlin is CBSN's political reporter. She is in Cleveland tonight. And Nicole is a CBS News correspondent covering all things out of Washington. Welcome to you both. All right, Caitlin, let me start with you. The number of persuadable voters may be relatively small, but how important are undecided voters at this moment in the campaign?
Right, that number of undecided voters is very small. We have fresh new polling out from CBS News that shows a vast majority of people that are going to be watching this debate tonight, likely voters. 73% say that they've already chosen a candidate and they're tuning in to see how that candidate does. About 41% are tuning in just for the entertainment value alone. About 8% are tuning in because they have nothing else to watch, so maybe they've exhausted all of the options on Netflix. And here's the key number, 6%. 6% of likely voters in our poll tonight say they are tuning in to figure out who they are going to vote for. So it's a very small margin, a very small number. We've been talking all day about, are there any of these persuadable voters left in an election that is increasingly becoming all about turning out your base? Who are these voters that are going to be tuning in tonight? Just 6% of them looking to see how Biden and Trump do against each other. We know, as we've been talking about also, that Democratic Party voters have been waiting for tonight this entire campaign, going all the way back to Iowa in 2019 when I was out there covering one of the first presidential events by Elizabeth Warren, who announced her candidacy. Voters even then were saying that the way that they were going to measure up these candidates running for the Democratic nomination was imagining them on a debate stage with Donald Trump. So tonight we'll see what their expectations are and if they paid off.
Yeah, I remember you telling us about that all those months ago. Well, Nicole, of course, one big difference about this election cycle is that voting is already underway. Close to 1.3 million people have already voted. In the battleground state of Wisconsin, they're already at a 10th of 2016 turnout. So how does that change the dynamic of the race and the debates?
Well, I think it does and it doesn't. I mean, that is a lot of people, but there's still a lot of people who haven't voted. And so whether someone is voting absentee, voting by mail, voting early in person, which we've seen that in a number of states, or just waiting until election day to cast their vote, voters make up their minds when they make up their minds, and while many have, there are still some out there that haven't. I've been traveling across a couple of states recently where I have encountered people who, few at least, who are still undecided. So to Caitlin's point, even if it is a relatively small number by our polling standards, certainly this presents an opportunity for voters to put these two candidates side by side and see how they match up against each other. And also, again, as Caitlin mentioned, certainly with the latest polling also showing that people just want to see how these candidates do. And I was struck by that number that some are just tuning in for the entertainment value of it all. But, the bottom line is certainly it will be a factor for some voters as far as their decision. To others, it may reinforce the decision they've already made.
Yeah. Well, we know that tonight's debate topics are broken up into 6 different segments as chosen by the moderator, each for about 15 minutes. Caitlin, in which topics do you see the candidates gaining an advantage?
Well, I think the focus on 2 topics that are top of mind for voters heading into this November election, the coronavirus pandemic and the economy. On the coronavirus pandemic, Joe Biden has shown in battleground states and nationally that he leads on that measure, that Americans by and large disapprove of the president's handling of coronavirus and are supporting Biden on that measure. But when it comes to the economy, that's been the silver lining for Donald Trump. He's been leading on the measure of the economy, trying to make that argument that the economy was good before the pandemic happened. So this is going to be an instance where you'll see the president on offense going after Joe Biden probably on the economy and raising questions about what Joe Biden would do and what he would have done differently on that measure. And then on coronavirus, this is where the Biden campaign really wants to focus tonight, making this race a referendum on the president's handling of the pandemic and also saying what he would have done differently if he were in charge. So those are 2 measures that are top of mind for voters and 2 issues that we'll see discussed at length in this debate.
Well, Nicole, we know the president and Joe Biden have each been preparing in different ways for this debate, and we've seen them both on the debate stage before, President Trump last in 2016, and Joe Biden as recently as March. How might they approach this debate?
Well, I think in one of 2 ways, or a combination of both. I think if they stick to the script, I think you will hear, for instance, the president make the argument of, I've been doing more in 47 months than Joe Biden has in 47 years. That's been the argument he's been making most recently on the campaign trail, and so I think you will hear that thread through any number of topics, whether it is the pandemic, the economy, race, law and order, even with the Supreme Court nominee. So that's one possibility. And of course, Biden, the mantra he's been sounding as of late has been a Scranton versus a Park Avenue approach. And so with the story that broke a couple of days ago on the president's taxes, this allows him to hammer that message home as well, that he's the one looking out for the little guy, the average worker out there, while the president has, kind of lived the high life his whole life. And so I think, again, you will hear the former vice president make that argument across all the topics tonight. If they go off script, all bets are off. I mean, I think that's really certainly one thing I'll be watching for, but I think what a lot of people will be watching for, especially those who said they're looking for the entertainment value here, how will the gloves come off? Will these guys go after each other? If you have followed the president and watched his campaign rallies, he can go in on Joe Biden. Joe Biden equally can hit back. And we even heard the vice president just tonight at a debate watch party saying that that the president is going to bring the fight to Joe Biden tonight. So to the extent that this does become a knockout, drag-out fight, that is certainly something that I think many will be watching for as well. So on script, off script, we'll just have to see, or a combination of both, like I said.
Right, something like that. All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns and Nicole Killian, great to have you both. Thank you. As we mentioned, the president has not been on a debate stage since 2016. Back then, Philippe Reines played the role of then-Republican nominee Donald Trump for Hillary Clinton's debate prep. Here's some of what they had to prepare for.
A good job in the 1990s. I think a lot about what worked and how we can make it work again.
Well, he approved
new jobs, a balanced budget,
which is the single most straight deal ever approved in this
incomes
country.
went up for everybody. Just join the debate by saying more crazy things. Now, let me say
There's nothing crazy about not letting our companies bring their money back into their country.
This is Secretary Clinton's 2 minutes, please.
So let's start the clock again, Lester. Starting when I was a senator from New York, but that's not the point here.
Why didn't you do it? Why didn't you do it?
Because I was a senator with a Republican president.
Oh, really?
I will be the
You could
president.
have done it.
who will
If
get
you were
it
an
done.
effective senator, you could have done it. If you were an effective senator, you could have done it. But you were not an effective.
Please allow her to respond. She didn't interrupt you.
That's part of my commitment to raise taxes on the wealthy. My Social Security payroll contribution will go up, as will Donald's, assuming he can't figure out how to get out of it. But what we want to do is to replenish the Social Security Trust Fund.
And former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State and Senior Advisor to Hillary Clinton, Philippe Reines, joins me now. Philippe, welcome. So you said that the key to beating President Trump in a debate is to, quote, get out of his way. What did you mean by that?
First, I want to thank you for that just lovely walk down memory lane.
How do you feel about that, Philippe?
Parts of it I want to laugh, parts of it I want to cry. I'll probably do it after we hang up. What I mean by that is, look, there is one Donald Trump. People argue which Donald Trump are you going to see. There's one. You see him, you cover the White House, you see what's happening every single day. You see it 3 to 5 times a week for the last 6 months. That guy is showing up tonight. There's no other guy. So that guy is not doing well. That guy, he's got his 40%, but the rest of America is not so keen on the bluster, on the bombast, on the line. Now, it makes good TV, and if Donald Trump's strategy is to really take advantage of the biggest audience he's going to have this campaign, then yeah, he can enjoy himself, and maybe even some people will say he won the debate. But he's losing the race, and if his goal were to come into this debate and try to do some good for himself, he would take a different approach. As a human being, he's not capable of doing it. So everyone's focused on how is Joe Biden going to react? What is Joe Biden going to say? He's going to fact check him. He's going to keep his cool. He's going to lose his cool. The truth of the matter is, if I were Joe Biden, and I would say, hi, Chris Wallace, moderator, thank you for being here tonight, and thank you to Case University for hosting us. And with that, I yield my 45 minutes to Donald Trump. Because the guy never misses an opportunity. And while 4 years ago it was hard to watch about those clips, was that you do see how within the interrupting and the histrionics, he's delivering message, whether it was job creation or trade, and he was getting his knocks on her. Now he doesn't do that. Now when he opens his mouth, it's a list of grievances about how slippery ramps are, and about how perfect his transcripts are, and angry Democrats. And it's one thing if he stands in the Rose Garden and he has all the time in the world to go off for 50 minutes and throw in some stuff about Joe Biden. He's got 2 or 3 minutes at a shot tonight. If he wants to spend, each of those men have to decide, do I want to spend 90 minutes quarreling with the other guy, or do I want to spend 90 minutes talking to the audience? It's clear what choice Trump is going to make. It's clear that Joe Biden knows the more he talks to the audience, the better he is. It doesn't mean he's going to stand there and take whatever comes at him. And by the way, if he just stood there and took it, a lot of people would say, including me, I don't want to see someone who can't defend themselves, who can't be strong in the face of being bullied. So Joe Biden has a hard job, but Donald Trump has a bigger task. And I'm pretty confident that he's going to blow it. And even the last thing I'll say is, in the 1% chance that he took this mythical debate drug himself and he were to give a good performance and say, everyone should wear a mask and we're going to test more, it'll stop tomorrow. He'll undo anything he does. So that guy's going to show up and that guy is losing. And that guy is counting on Joe Biden to, I don't know, some kind of event, health event that disqualifies himself. I mean, it's a pretty passive plan.
Philippe, I want to ask you a question having to do with gender, because you raised this notion of Donald Trump interrupting Secretary Clinton during the debate. Let's go ahead and, at the risk of alienating you, Philippe, we're going to play for some of our viewers here who may have missed our montage off the top, just a little bit of what we saw in 2016. Let's listen.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton. Philippe, I'm not even sure what the question is. I think I start with this idea. Do you think there is a difference in the expectation of a male candidate versus a female candidate when it comes to engaging in these kinds of verbal confrontations in a place like a general election debate?
There's absolutely no doubt. I mean, no one tonight is going to look at Joe Biden and say, oh, he interrupted Donald Trump, how, testy of him or how touchy of him. Hillary Clinton was the first major party nominee, and without going down this path too much, we look at these debates and we look at moments like these and we try to envision a president. We only had 44 men who have been president, so it's hard to imagine a woman. Now, Hillary herself has written in her book, in that moment later on where he's stalking her, that I want to turn around and take back off the priest. You know what? The idea that everyone would applaud and think that's so great, it would have been good TV. And in hindsight, I wish she had done it. But we'd also be talking about, does she have the temperament? Did she lose her cool? Did she, is she too words that I won't say on, family-friendly mediums? And Joe Biden
does that
have to
give Joe
worry
Biden
about
an advantage? Sorry, Philippe, I don't mean to interrupt, but does that mean Joe Biden has an advantage that Hillary Clinton didn't?
It is. That one clip, he said she is such a nasty woman. We're all sitting here like, oh yeah, I remember that moment. That's just another day in our life. He wouldn't have said that. He's not going to say, he might say to Chris Wallace, that's such a nasty question, or that is such a nasty person. And maybe he says to Joe Biden, you're so nasty, but it's different. When he said, you know what he won't say, which he said to Hillary, she doesn't have that presidential look. And I don't think he was talking about her tie or lack of. He was saying she's a woman, that she's shorter, she can't bench press as much. I don't even know what he's saying, but you know it when you hear it. And that's not something that Joe Biden has to deal with. And unfortunately, that's probably going to redound to his benefit. Hillary I love her to death, and I've worked for her and known her since 2002, but she has an incredibly annoying habit of being right about 4 or 5 years too early.
Well, let me ask you this. If you're Joe Biden, do you see these debates more as an opportunity or a potential liability, given what we've seen so far with respect to the trajectory of this contest?
No, I would be excited if, first of all, as a human, these people get nervous too. And, he spends some time figuring out what kind of tie he should wear. But if I were Joe Biden, he knows he's ready. It might get ugly. He'll have good moments, he'll have bad moments. But he knows that this is the best opportunity to talk to audiences that might not ever see. This is just a lot of people. You're going to have people tonight that are tuning in to Fox to watch Tucker who are going to say, oh, I'm bumping into a debate. They're going to see them for 90 minutes, and they're going to see them without a filter. Now, they might be yelling and talking over each other, but it's not until later at night that the likes of Sean Hannity gets their hands on these clips and starts to say other things. And that does not benefit Donald Trump. Donald Trump needs that filter. He needs the artificial, the guy, Bert Hume on Fox a little while ago said that he's convinced that Joe Biden is senile. You know what the problem is? Joe Biden's not senile, and we're all about to see that he's not senile. And yes, these are opportunities, and it's in very simple terms. The debate is a huge moment, but it's just another moment. His convention speech was a moment. His being yesterday at a rally is a moment. His giving a speech next week is a moment. The campaign is a totality of moments. And Joe Biden's have been consistent. What Joe Biden says tonight is what he's going to say tomorrow is what he said last month. Donald, and that seems to be working with enough people to put him in office, hopefully. Donald Trump, what he says tonight, some of it will be the same, but he's so proud of the fact that he's got new lines of attack on Joe Biden. I'm sorry, if it's 35 days left, and you're still trying to figure out what to say, then you aren't just blowing a big moment. You've been blowing every moment until now.
All right. Well, we are just minutes away for Leap Rhinus. Leap, thank you very much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me.
So to come, we'll talk President Trump's strategy for tonight with RNC Senior Advisor for Data, Katie Walsh-Shields. Stay with us. You're streaming Red and Blue.
Or maybe he doesn't want the American people, all of you watching tonight, to know that he's paid nothing in federal taxes, because the only years that anybody's ever seen were a couple of years when he had to turn them over to state authorities when he was trying to get a casino license, and they showed he didn't pay any federal income tax. So if he's paid zero, that means zero for troops, zero for vets, zero for schools or health. And I think probably he's not all that enthusiastic about having the rest of our country see what the real reasons are.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback. Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more. Experience thought-provoking,
What's the idea of being a human being?
innovative, and truly original recording.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always...
Wow. host, Stephen Colbert. You might notice when the show is open these days, I'm leaning back in the chair a lot. I'm either very comfortable in this job these days, or I no longer have the core strength to sit up. Let's find out which of those it is. Folks, I'm not going to lie to you. What good would it do? The corona pandemic continues to rage in America's hot zone, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And reports say the West Wing has turned into a ghost town. Previously, the only ghost haunting the mansion was Mike Pence. He's at least a zombie. Why else is he attracting all those flies? Things have got especially tough for the White House correspondents like CNN's Joe Johns, who had this happen to him during a broadcast. Yeah, there he is. Ah!
Damn. Frickin' raccoons, man. God, again, this is the second time. Jesus. I guess the crap's not working, right? Hey, man. Raccoon thing back. It always comes around right about when I'm going to go on TV.
Poor Joe Johns. Stuck there at the White House. He's just stuck there with a disease-ridden, garbage-eating animal running around. Also, that raccoon. But I'm not surprised. Humans have retreated from their natural habitats because of the virus. And the wildlife just moves in. Ed Sullivan Theater has been empty for 7 months. I wonder what's going on down there. Jim, do we have a picture? That damn raccoon is sitting on my desk. And he's interviewing Bradley Cooper. And they're clearly having so much fun. Look at the chemistry. Of course, Joe Johns isn't the first newsman to be interrupted by an animal. Happened to Cronkite.
Good evening. President Nixon reportedly will announce his resignation tonight, and Vice President Ford will become the nation's 38th president tomorrow. That word?
That's the way it is. With COVID running rampant throughout the executive branch, this morning the Commission on Presidential Debates announced that the second presidential debate will be virtual. Virtual? How's that going to work? Hopefully it'll be like Tron. So instead of discussing the economy, they'll just race around on light cycles. Of course, they'll need to update their wardrobe. The decision did not sit well with Trump's campaign manager, Bill Stepien, who, by the way, also has the COVID. Stepien claimed the new format is unnecessary because Trump will have posted multiple negative tests prior to the debate. That's not how any of this works. You can't put all your faith in something that might happen down the line when the potential consequence is death. That's like saying, look, I know your parachute isn't working now, but I have full confidence that we'll get it up and running before we reach terminal velocity. Hand me that Scotch tape. So, what will this virtual debate look like? We might never find out because after it was announced, Trump immediately called Maria Bartiromo of Fox Business and said this.
I'm not going to do a virtual debate. I'm not going to waste my time on a virtual debate.
Yes, Trump's time is very precious, he said, while calling Fox Business in the middle of a deadly plague. But it was no surprise to hear Trump's main gripe about a virtual format.
I mean, they cut you off whenever they want.
He's afraid of having to follow the rules that he agreed